On today's show, we're going to get good use out of... We're going to be talking about some clients that Jason Kidd's agency is representing because we heard some stuff from Chad Ford yesterday, so we'll get into that, some free agency talk. And of course, we got to talk about our boy Giannis. We got to talk about
Giannis, baby.
Congrats to the Bucks on Locked On Mavs.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good! And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and coordinator for the Locked On Podcast Network. And joining me, as always, my co-host, contributor at Mavs.com, the Greek freak feigning the one more thinking. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
Oh, man. Well, first off, the offseason starts today. Today's the day. Now we can just, here we go.
Guess what?
Off-season.
No more basketball for 4 days until the Olympics
say.
come back and Luka plays.
Yes, we get the Olympics to do us over for a bit. But how excited, I know we are both excited for the Bucks. I was talking to you before this. I don't know if I've been this happy for a non-Mavericks team to win the title. I don't know when. I mean, I guess it was, the last Jordan title, but I was super young then. I was really happy when the Pistons beat the Lakers, but it's this was I didn't mind the Warriors teams. I know some people hated them, but I was genuinely so happy in my house. I was celebrating for Giannis, for this team, but Giannis's story, I was so happy for him. And I know we're going to talk about it more, but this is a win for small markets across the league, which I love that too.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll go get into it and we'll talk about Giannis winning the title for the Milwaukee Bucks. An incredible 50-point performance for him. But this episode is brought to you by Spotify Green Room. Download the app and join us this week to get in on the action. We are also going to be talking about Excel clients, which we don't really get into agencies and stuff like that unless you're talking about Clutch, really. But Chad Ford dropped a little nugget about Jason Kidd on the podcast yesterday, which, by the way, if you guys haven't listened to our episode with Chad Ford, there's some really good stuff about the 2020 draft with Josh Green, Sadiq Bey, and how the front office is laid out, the Bob Voulgaris stuff. He knew about Bob Voulgaris before anybody was talking about it back on draft night 2020. So some real good stuff there, stuff about Jason Kidd, and then we'll play a little clip later about, Jason Kidd, and he has a preference for certain players. And so we're going to get into it. We're going to speculate wildly about some players that are represented by Jason Kidd's agency. So let's get into that. But before we do, man, Giannis, 50 points in the NBA Finals. That is, first of all, that feat right there has not been done very often. It's only been done now, let's see, this is now 8 times? 8 times total it's been done. It's absolutely wild. The list of players that have scored 50 points just in a finals game at all, not even a clinching finals game or to win the finals or anything like that. He joins. I'm vamping. Elgin Baylor, who scored 61 in 1962. Rick Barry scored 55 in 1967. Your boy Michael Jordan, 55 points in 93. Jerry West scored 53 in 69. LeBron James scored 51 in 2018. That was in a loss. It's the only one in a loss, which is wild. Giannis scored 50 in 2020, and Bob Pettit scored 50 in 1958. So a lot of those are a long time ago. So since 1970, basically, since the three-point line has been added, right? Only 3 players have done this. Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and Giannis scored 50 points in a finals game. Just absolutely wild stat for Giannis.
I mean, this cemented his legacy tonight. There were so many questions about him. Can he, he's a great regular season guy. What will happen when it comes to the playoffs? I question that. I question, can he?
Yeah, I thought they might lose to the Heat this year.
Yeah, but for him to go on this run for him to have this performance, like this was literally one of the, I try not to be one of those in the moment guys. Even when you have to lean old versus new, I tend to lean towards the older generation when it comes to like performances, Jordan, Wilt, all of that. But in this moment right now, this was one of the greatest basketball performances I've ever seen. Like to see what he was doing in that game, to put the team on his back defensively. I mean, some of those blocks were insane. The hustle, like what? I mean, he was out hustling everybody, 50 points. The free throws, what is going on? Like,
dude, man.
I mean,
what did he finish with? 17 of 19 from the free throw line?
Yeah.
Think about the mental fortitude, like the testicular fortitude to go up to the line and literally, I mean, it was at home this game, but to go up to the line and everyone's counting when you go to the free throw line. Every time you're at the free throw line, they're counting because they're trying to see if, you know, you're going to hit that 10-second mark, and then cheering when you miss, and everybody's talking about it. Chris Paul comments about his free throws and like, oh, we hope we get the offensive rebounds after he misses a free throw. And then to just go to the line that many times, like there's just a certain resolve in Giannis's brain, his mind, like his mindset, his mentality, where he can just go to the line and not care, right? Like it's almost, we talk about with Ben Simmons how he's scared to take the threes, blah blah. Giannis does not have that, right? He probably was the same skill level as Ben Simmons as far as shooting when he came in the NBA, but he has just pushed right past that, and he is not afraid at all. And that's what made him a champion, right? Like just not being afraid to just keep driving, to not, we've talked about a bunch of players like Lonzo and Ben Simmons and guys that they get scared to drive into the paint and to get contact because they don't want to go to the free throw line. Yeah. And Giannis did not do that. He embraced it, and 17 of 19 from the free throw line, that was a huge difference in this game. And,
but how many finals MVP votes did Middleton get? I didn't know if that should have been a thing or not.
Is he the Batman? No.
Is Giannis? I'm not even gonna go into the Hooper stuff because
that's stupid.
He doesn't even deserve.
Save that for Twitter jokes.
I don't know. He doesn't even deserve Twitter stuff. Like, come on, he's discredited himself too much. But when I said at the beginning, this was a win for small markets. I mean, how many small market teams and GMs and owners are celebrating tonight too? Especially seeing the post-game Giannis stuff. That, to me, that's an all-time quote. Like,
it's inspiring.
The quote afterwards where he hits the table post-game and says, man, I could have joined a super team, but that would have been the easy way. This is the hard way. Like, that, like, put that on a plaque in every small market across the league, because you can't help to draw the comparisons to even last year, right? Look at what Anthony Davis did to get out of New Orleans, to get to LA, the big market, and all of that, to join LeBron James. They win the title. Like, what a difference if you're just looking at those two stars to the Giannis story of having, and honestly, I tweeted this out. I think this is my favorite storyline in sports. The superstar player who has a chance, who's been with a team for like years, like not just like 3 years and win a title. I'm talking about like years and years, has a chance to leave and could go join any market team he wants, but chooses to stay. And I get it. It's a Supermax contract. There's a lot of money there too, but has a chance, stays, and wins a title. It's one of the most fulfilling sports things for me and storylines for me. And I love every bit of it.
I wonder why that's a fulfilling storyline for you in your life personally. I wonder why. It's not like there's a guy literally like over your right shoulder just like looking at you right now.
Don't look at my walls.
I was going to say, it's not like we don't just wear his apparel all the time and think about Dirk all the time and like love him more than anything. But
Luka, are you watching?
But it's true. It's true. And there was moments, especially in, I tweeted Giannis is having his Dirk moment. Because right after the game, he sits down on that baseline and he's just overcome with emotion. It was just like Dirk going back to the locker room. Now, it wasn't on the same level as Dirk where he like couldn't get himself together. It was that, emotionally like taxing and everything. But Giannis has been through a lot. Like he hyperextended his knee in the series before. We thought he was going to be done. I thought they were going to go into the series and we were going to have, limping Chris Paul and then a limping Giannis on either side. It was going to be a dumb series. But Giannis, he pushed through. he made it work, and he won the title, and he had that moment. And it was just like Dirk, and it really felt like that. And so you wonder what it's going to do to the minds of Damian Lillard or somebody else. Or
I know. I literally
hopefully
thought
it
of Dame.
speaks to Luka, right? Like, hopefully Luka doesn't need any more examples of guys doing this.
Well, I think a lot of people can take Giannis's quotes afterwards, be like, all right, this is subtweet to LeBron or subtweet to KD, you know, and all the super teams that's won titles in recent history. But I think it's awesome, man. If you're a young player and you're a young star like Luka, or even like we've heard stuff about Zion, even though I don't think Zion's on like the Luka level, but like Damian's like, you know, Damian Lillard's situation right now, like, does Lillard come out in the next 2 days and say, I want to trade to a super team after like what Giannis just said? I mean, he very well could, and like I would get it, but it's like there's just something special about it. And I love Giannis's story. I have Fader's book, you know, pre-ordered. I'm excited for that.
Man,
and
shout out to her. Her book sales are going through the roof today.
Yes, she needs to add a new chapter now. I mean, this is a whole
an
new
addendum
chapter.
In the hard copy or the paperback,
And
or whatever one.
not that we needed any more proof of why Dallas pushed a lot of their chips into trying to hold out for Giannis. But here you go. I mean, you can't help to look at this and say, you know, Dallas held out on different free agent signings and holding back money for the chance to go get Giannis if, you know, didn't sign the extension, because they saw what Giannis had and said, if we paired him with Luka, like, I don't even know like what would happen to the league. And he stayed, and it was a bummer at the moment. We were bummed. Dang. Yeah. He signed the extension, but man, if he was going to do anything besides Dallas, stay in freaking Milwaukee. It's so much fun to see this. And I think it's healthy for the league. And I think everyone's winning right now, right? Like as far as like the league collectively, the story of Giannis and the Bucks, it's an amazing story.
Absolutely. It's an incredible, amazing story. We're going to talk about the Mavs story and how they can keep writing in the history books. We're going to talk about, there's a conspiracy theory, it's a little bit of a conspiracy theory about Jason Kidd and a certain agency, and Chad Ford dropped some nuggets on our podcast yesterday. We're going to share that clip again and talk about that coming up. But before we do, I'm going to tell you about Spotify Green Room. Spotify Green Room is a great way to talk to people about sports. Right now, The Ringer is doing a huge thing after the finals. They're on there all the time. We love those guys over there. And they have rooms. All of our Locked On MLB, Locked On NBA, they have rooms and stuff all the time. Locked On NHL, we have rooms going all the time. So if you're interested in anything like that, go ahead and check out Spotify Green Room. It's a perfect place to start or join a conversation about a league. You can actually join in the conversation, not just like a podcast. You sit there and you can actually, if you've ever listened to our podcast and wanted to talk back, in a positive way, right? Like you wanted to say something, bring up a point. You can do that in Spotify Green Room. So download the app and join the NBA group. Follow me. I'm at Nick Van Exit. You can see whenever we go live to join us. We do some rooms there once a week. So go check that out. We will be there. Spotify Green Room, changing the way we talk sports. All right, Isaac Harris,
Can I chime in real quick? You said Spotify and you said The Ringer, and I just want to plug something again. Our friend Jonathan Charks works for The Ringer. I was with John today. I actually picked him up from chemo. We were talking about everything that is going on right now with this GoFundMe that Kirk had started. But just a reminder, next Saturday, July 31st, I think that's the date, yes. Or the 29th. No,
it throws me off. Is that a real day?
It's next Saturday at the pub in McKinney, here in the Dallas, Metroplex suburb, whatever you want to define that. But join it if you're a Mavs fan, basketball fan, whoever you want to support John. Join us at the pub. Nick and myself, we're going to be talking. Bobby Corral is going to be talking
live in person.
A bunch of people is going to be talking Mavs and free agency. We're going to be taking questions about the Mavs and everything. So make sure to join us if you're in Dallas. Let's support John. Let's have fun talking about the Mavs offseason and moves and everything. I'm looking forward to it. And a lot of you have DM'd us, tweeted us, said, hey, let's connect at a game, whatever it is. Let's grab lunch. This is the time. Let's do this. Let's meet up. Let's talk Mavs and everything. So, yeah.
There you go. Saturday. So not this Saturday, but next Saturday, right?
Yes, next Saturday.
Next Saturday. We're so great at dates.
that is the 31st, by the way.
Yeah. If you've ever wondered which one of us is taller, you'll find out then, right?
Ooh, I gotta wear some tall shoes.
Platforms. All right, let's get into this. So, Chad Ford brought this up on our podcast yesterday about Jason Kidd, and he has a tendency to try and push himself, littlefinger himself into front offices. He really tried going from Brooklyn to Milwaukee. And in other places that he's been, he's tried to have a say in some of the front office decisions. We've heard that essentially with the Mavericks, it's a whole brain trust now. It's all just everybody talking together and everybody making decisions. They're making collective decisions on, on the coaching staff. So I'm sure they're going to make collective decisions on roster and all that kind of stuff. So Chad Ford dropped this nugget on our podcast yesterday, and we're going to dive right into it deep.
Fair. The other thing that he's just going to have to, and maybe I'm going to get in trouble in the Locked On Mavs talking about this, is Jason Kidd is not only a formidable head coach, but everywhere he's gone, he has gotten heavily involved in the front office matters that he's been at, sometimes much to the chagrin of their general managers. And so one of the things that I think is really going to have to be worked on is Nico and Jason Kidd's relationship, because coaches will always want to run the franchise and get the prospects that they think are going to help them win tomorrow night. That's what they care about, right? And general managers have to take a much longer view of this and try to decide, okay, maybe he helps us win tomorrow, but does he help us win in round 3 of the playoffs, or does he help us in 3 years? And Kidd has a reputation throughout the league of not caring about any of that. Who is it tomorrow? He gets enamored with certain prospects. He gets enamored, frankly, sometimes with, he's managed and rep by Excel and other Excel clients. There's been a long history of him, pushing for that. So, when he pushes, and it was him who pushes for Michael Carter-Williams to go, to the Bucks and that big deal, Michael Carter-Williams, an Excel client that Jason had sort of met and really pushed for.
Let me Google
that's the thing.
Excel clients. Let me just Google that real quick.
Yeah, go look at the Excel's clients and see. And this is something Nico is just going to have the juice to be able to tell your head coach it sometimes. No, I'm going to, you're going to have to play the guys that I give you, that we're going to, you have a voice in this matter, but you're not the voice. And I think that's been hard for Jason Kidd in the past, given his type A personality, given how strong he is, and this as opinionated as he is. That to me is going to, if you see a lot of changes, that would be the thing that I would be unsteady about, and I'd just be watching as a Mavs fan. I think Jason Kidd can coach. I don't think he's got any business being a general manager.
I was just cracking up at us going, oh, we got to Google Excel clients real quick here. But guess what? That's what we're going to do today. We're going to do a little bit of a game, sort of like, what about this guy? What about this guy? What about this guy? So it's going to be a lot of jumping around, a lot of different names. But there are some really fascinating names in there. And I think it's interesting when Chad Ford said Jason Kidd gets enamored with these Excel clients. Excel is this, sports management group that managed Jason Kidd. I think he said still manages Jason Kidd, and he gets enamored with some of these guys. You talk to an agent a lot, and they're real good friends. It's like Rob Pelinka and Kobe, right? Like that's that kind of a relationship. And so all of a sudden, you get really enamored with some of these guys because the agent's sitting there talking them up to you all the time. And so you start getting that name in your head, and it just gets stuck there. And all of a sudden, you're like, okay, we got to get this guy. We got to get this guy. And so there's a bunch of guys that Excel represents. And so we're going to go through some of these names and see which one of them. We're going to make a guess which one of them we think that Jason Kidd's going to start getting obsessed with, or which one of them actually do make sense. And maybe that connection is something we haven't searched through very often, or haven't searched through yet, that we're like, oh, that's actually an interesting connection point to where Mavericks can have a relationship with this player because of Jason Kidd's representation with Excel and all that.
Yeah, like Cole Aldrich. Can they get Cole Aldrich to come back? That's one.
That's the headliner right there. That's going in the title of the podcast.
His size, shooting ability to get him to come back. But no, I mean, Excel's huge. It's one of the bigger agencies in the league. So there are a lot of names with this. But I think there is something to it that you can look at and say, all right, are there some names that's going to be some free agents? I, in particular, have one that is in the draft class coming up, that if they traded in.
I mean, Boban is one of them. Dwight Powell is one of them. Tyson Chandler is one of them. So there's a couple of familiar names in this for sure. Jokic is an Excel client.
Darren Williams,
former Maverick. Yeah, that one's. I just said Jokic because there's other bigger players that are. Chris Middleton just won a title. He's represented by them. But yeah, give me your name that sticks out to you first.
Well, okay. Well, this was a smaller name. I know we're going to talk about big names, but this is actually one of the guys I like compared to where he's ranked in mock drafts. But Ayo Dosumu
Oh yeah.
from Illinois.
Yeah.
And I love what he brings. I'm not going to do the whole big draft profile, but defensive guard, he was like the main guy at Illinois. But that's the type of dude that if they traded into the bottom of the first round on draft night and they're like sitting there like 24 or something, you're like, man, who could they go pick? You know what I'm going to say? Ayo.
Hey,
but that's like,
yo.
hey, like a defensive type of guard. He's 6'3", 6'4", like something like that would make sense. And there's the XL like connection in that kid and his connections through there. So anyway, that's just a smaller name I like.
Well, part of it is he gets enamored by draft prospects too. It's like free agents, draft prospects. So if he gets stuck and it's like, we got to get back in the first round because we got to get this guy right here.
Yeah, and we've talked about the draft stuff yesterday. It's like there's a world at which they just set everything out on draft night because they just got started.
They sit out of the draft whole thing.
Yeah, they don't try to trade in. But there's also a world too where Nico's sitting there saying, well, dang, I want to do something. Like, it's, people do the like new owner syndrome sometime of like when a new owner takes over a franchise, they want to do something. They're antsy. Like I could totally see Nico trying to make some type of trade, either in like buying into the second round just because he wants to do something on draft night. Let's get a guy in here that I like or whatever. So anyway, we can talk.
Absolutely. All right, let's start throwing out just a couple of names here, and then we can. I mean, the big one that stuck out to me first is John Collins. That's a name we've talked about a lot. He is a big name. He's going to be a free agent. So it's like availability, excel, and then there's also just he would fit with the Mavericks offensively, what they want to do or what we've seen them want to do in the past. And so that's a huge one, obviously.
Yeah, that was the first. Yeah, that was the first name that popped off the page. There's some bigger names on the list, but
for sure,
as far as realistic, somebody who's hitting free agency, somebody that you would obviously need a relationship with the agency going into restricted free agency and everything. If the Mavericks, do really like John Collins, that relationship is already there. A younger player.
There's some more interesting names on the list, I think, and there's some ones that stick out that you're like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That one could be a little more realistic. John Collins, they would have to offer a huge deal to, and maybe Jason Kidd gets enamored with him. If the Mavericks do offer John Collins a massive deal, then this may be our connecting point, right? Like string on the corkboard. This may be Excel to John Collins to Jason Kidd. That may be our connecting point. But coming up, let's get into some more. There's some interesting names that we haven't talked about yet in this offseason, so we'll get to them. They could be coming to the Mavericks. And there's some better names than John Collins, too, on this list that I think could be possibilities. So we'll talk about that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about Built Bar. Built Bar is a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. They're great. The mint brownie is just solid. I eat them all the time. There's a new one right here that I'm seeing. Lemon almond cheesecake. That one's coming back. They brought that one back after a while. They haven't had that one in a while, but that one's new. You can go check that one out. Cherry barcia, raspberry, they're all great. But the best thing about these bars is they're pretty good for you. 130 calories, just 4 grams of sugar in the mint brownie bar, and 17 grams of protein. For a bar covered in 100% chocolate, you can eat it, tastes like a candy bar, and they're great. So go check it out. Use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off at Built Bar or Built.com. Also want to tell you about RockAuto.com. Rock Auto is the place to go search for your car parts. If you need something as simple as carpet or a mirror or something that you need for your car that even you can replace yourself, don't try to go find the right thing that'll fit for your car. The carpet must be so hard to try and go find somewhere because there's different floor arrangements. There's different just those little like bumps and things for the wheel, and there's just all these different things. Just find the correct carpet for your car, and it's there at rockauto.com. All that different kind of stuff that you can get. And the prices are always reliably low for every single customer. They don't try to price gouge on the consumer and give a better deal to the mechanics because they order in bulk. They don't care about that. They give you the same prices all across the board. So go and explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution for your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, locked on in their How Did You Hear About Us box. They know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. All right, Isaac Harris, let's get into some more of these names. Again, we're talking about Jason Kidd is represented by Excel Sports, and Chad Ford told us in that clip earlier that there's sometimes when Jason Kidd gets enamored with some of these guys that are represented by the same agency, and he tries to Littlefinger his way into the front office to convince the front office to go get this guy. One of those names was John Collins, we mentioned. He's a big name that we've already done a whole profile on, so go check that out, that video or that podcast about us talking about John Collins, his fit with the Mavericks and all that. Isaac, what are some other names that stick out to you?
Well, there's two names that's on the trading block and they're at two opposite ends of, spectrums of their career at the moment and two opposite ends of the contract spectrum too. And that's Marvin Bagley and Kevin Love. I'm not saying in the way of like, hey, the Mavericks should go after one of them. I'm just saying those are two situations, two totally different situations, but kind of similar in the sense of like, could you see XL have a relationship with Kid saying, hey, like Marvin or Kevin, either one, if they just had a change of scenery, they would be so much better in what they're playing right now.
Marvin Bagley and Kevin Love.
Yeah, and it's what, like, couldn't you see that type of thing though? Like if they traded for Kevin Love in the offseason and it's like a salary done or it's a buyout, they buy out Kevin Love and they bring Kevin Love in. It's, Jason Kidd, first media. Well, connection to Kevin, we actually share the same agency. And I knew that, he was healthier, but just looking for a better, same thing with Marvin Bagley.
The first thing he wouldn't say is the agency part. He would talk about him as a player and
True,
try to downplay the agency part, but then it would be a big deal. But I agree with you. This can be a positive thing or a negative thing. And I think Chad Ford was talking about it. It was a negative thing in the past where he gets enamored with somebody. So if the Mavericks all of a sudden make a trade for Kevin Love or something crazy like that, all of a sudden we're like, oh, dang, he just got really stuck on Kevin Love being a Maverick somehow. Like, oh, we can trade Porzingis for him. Like, that would be a little bit of a disaster, right? Like if the Mavericks did that, but this might explain it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's some smaller names on this list too, like Lucas, guy Konkar, like in Denver. I mean, that's he's an XL guy. But back to the Bagley thing. I mean, that's a specific one too that the agency still believes in Bagley, and it's like, hey, they're telling everybody. Just get him a new home. Like get him, like somebody go get him. And I promise you he'll be better in Sacramento. The agency's talking that up. And if you're the agency,
who else is talking that up? Him, his dad, his brother, him on his Twitter account, whoever runs his Twitter account, like everyone's saying that.
But if you're Bagley's camp, what are you doing right now? You know who he'd look great playing next to? Luka Doncic. You know who they have a connection to? The agency, the freaking head coach of the Dallas Mavericks. So it's like, you could put the tea leaves together of that saying, that they're saying, hey, if you can go get him for fairly cheap, go get him, bring him to Dallas. He could, excel next to Luka and all of that.
Let me give you a big name that is a potential guy on the trade block as well. CJ McCollum. He's represented by XL, and that's an interesting one where you could see, Damian Lillard decides to he wants to be traded. They trade for like a huge trade package of like draft picks and stuff, and they're setting the full reset. All of a sudden, CJ McCollum's hanging out there going, okay, what do I do? And then do the Mavs do the Porzingis for CJ McCollum and stuff deal then? That could be an interesting one as well.
Yeah, CJ McCollum, Chris Middleton, there's some bigger names in that. It even going back to the Kevin Love type of contract.
He was on Team USA, right? Like Kevin Love, Team USA. That doesn't that mean something, Isaac?
No, it doesn't. For a game.
JaVale McGee.
Kemba Walker's an XL guy.
Yeah.
I mean, they're looking for a new home. Somebody go get Kemba from OKC. So they're already in the year of Jason Kidd saying, hey, Kemba would be great next to worst case scenario. I have a worst case scenario for you.
I know which name. It's my favorite name.
Oh my gosh. Jason's like, Andre Drummond was in LA last year. I had him on the team. I know how good he can be.
I've seen him firsthand.
Frank kind of
they didn't use him right.
Yeah, this is what he's saying under the table. Like Frank just kind of misused him a little bit. We just couldn't really integrate him well into the team.
Give him the mid-level.
That would make me cringe, and I would immediately go into this is our Michael Carter Williams right here.
That name was the one that stuck out to me. It was Andre Drummond. DeMarcus Cousins is another one represented by XL. Yeah. That one's not as a disaster as Drummond because he just would have a different role and all that.
Hassan Whiteside.
Hassan Whiteside was another one. Michael Carter Williams still out there, right? Like he's still a guy. You mentioned Whiteside. There's
Kelly Olynyk is intriguing in this.
There's not a ton of names that are a disaster though, right? And like
but it
depends how they go about getting them.
I want to echo your thing of like, this can be good and bad. Like, we're joking in the bad sense of like, if there's another Michael Carter Williams situation, but there's also the positive in this, that he has this connection. He has this connection through this huge agency. And it's like, could it lead to Kelly Olynyk or somebody signing here for a cheaper contract, or them, taking a flyer on a Marvin Bagley for a cheaper type of trade? Like, could it lead to something like that? Heck yeah. Like, if they pulled off some crazy trade for CJ McCollum and we find out 2 weeks later that, well, man, Excel, they had this relationship with Jason Kidd, and it was just kind of this mutual thing. It helped really facilitate the deal and everything. We're like, well, let's go. Like, it was a positive thing. So it's good and bad, but we can't, especially that there's history there, and was reported. It was talked about on our podcast by Chad Ford. Like, we can't ignore it too. So
there's a bunch of like younger names. Let's just start throwing out some of them that they could take as flyers. Like, these sort of feel like the Wes Iwundu types, where it's like, all right, let's take a flyer on a young guy that seems like he could work in the league. He's had some good moments, but let's bring him in and see if he can work and kind of do that guy a favor a little bit. Like Malik Monk is a little bit of a name like that.
Yeah.
Chetty Osman's a little bit better than that, but he's a guy that's interesting like that. There's Gogo Batazzi. He's a young guy, but
Harry Giles.
He's saying Harry Giles is definitely a name.
Al Jefferson and Brandon Jennings.
Bucks and 6, Brandon Jennings.
This was a good young flyer too. And if they could, make a trade into the draft for him, Cade Cunningham, I don't know if you've heard of him. He's an Excel guy too.
I just knew by the tone of your voice it was going to be a joke. I could just tell.
We've known each other too long.
Emeka Okafor.
Guys, going back to the full circle, the list is long. Okay, so
Don Maker.
It's not like there's 5 guys for Excel and we're like, oh, the circle of 5
There's
guys.
names we haven't said yet. Ricky Rubio is another one that's like, he's going to be out there and probably available.
Yeah, I mean, there's still, Jamal Murray. Like,
here's one that was rumored.
Wiseman.
That's been rumored a couple times. James Wiseman. Can we do James Wiseman and like 14 for Porzingis? No, it's probably have to do Wiggins and Wiseman or something. But.
Yeah.
Any others we haven't mentioned yet? What about this guy? Cody Zeller, a real actual name, because he's going to be a free agent. That could be a guy that they bring in.
Patrick Patterson. Kyle Korver.
Tyson Chandler. My brother Kyle Korver.
Your brother. Tyson Chandler. Let's just bring all.
Do people know the story of that? So one time I was at a Mavs game and I was there for shoot around, and Kyle Korver was shooting around, and I was just walking around to the other side of the gym, and this guy stops me and goes, "Is that your brother?" About Kyle Korver.
Yeah, yes, it is.
Yeah, I'm actually all his brothers. Didn't all his brothers play college basketball, like at Creighton? I think they all went there.
You tell me, it's your brothers too.
I did not follow in their line.
You should have just leaned into it. Like, yeah, man, we put up so many shots in the backyard. Like, I used to rebound for him every day.
There's a great New Girl episode where Schmidt pretends that he's a Romney because he looks like Mitt Romney, and he says he's Tug Romney. He's like, yeah, I just love when me and Dad go on the boat, couple of cold beers in hand, and then the girls are like, that he's trying to impress, are like, your dad's a Mormon. He doesn't drink. It's like, well, we don't drink the beers. We just buy them to support American breweries.
This is the weird part of the pod.
Oh, we've totally gone off. Jamal Murray is another name that's an Excel client.
I said that name.
That one doesn't. I mean, there's no real like path or connection there. It's interesting that like both Jamal Murray and Jokic are both represented by Excel. Brandon Ingram. Did you mention that one?
No, I didn't mention that one. Just know if one of these names end up on the Mavericks, we're going to be quote tweeting me like, Excel.
Yeah. Oh, everyone's going to know now. Excel client. Excel, and there's more than.
No, I got one. And it took us 34 minutes to even get here because he's not on the list because he's brand new to Excel. Victor Oladipo.
Oh, yeah.
Switched.
Yeah.
And it shows how many people listen to the Chat 4 pod because we got tweets and stuff today saying, oh, like, look here. Like, this is on the eve of free agency. Hey, Oladipo switches.
Hey, Jason, he's healthy. He's 100% healthy now, and like you could take it's a low budget flyer on him. You can just bring him in, and
I heard Mark said he wanted a bigger playmaker next to Luka. What do you think?
What an upgrade from DeLon Wright, Josh Richardson to this version of Oladipo. Oh,
Ask Mark, where did he go to school? Because him and Victor both went to Indiana.
They're Hoosiers.
Would you be shocked if Oladipo is a Maverick next year?
Which, by the way, we've been doing the phone to the head thing for the last 5 minutes. Nobody on the podcast can actually see that. On YouTube, you can.
YouTube, you can. If Oladipo's a Maverick next year, how surprised are you, percentage-wise?
Oh, after what Chad Ford said, not at all. I'd be surprised if it was for like a real guaranteed deal, though.
Yeah. I don't think Oladipo's getting like 15 or 20 million a year. I think it's going to be at like a 1 year, like $10 million or something like that.
What if their only move of the offseason is they bring back Hardaway and then they sign Oladipo?
I mean,
are there riots in the street? Is the exact opposite of what's happening in Milwaukee going to happen in Dallas?
We could have Andre Drummond. Okay.
Is that worse than signing Oladipo? This version of Oladipo?
Yes. I'm on board of taking a flyer on Oladipo. Like
if it was a flyer, not if it was a guaranteed starter plus double-digit millions plus all that.
I'm not doing like 3-year, 15 million a year, like 3 for 45 for Oladipo. No, I'm not doing that right now. He needs a 1-year prove-it deal, and I'm down for something like that. Like, could you convince if you go out, if you re-sign Tim, you trade for somebody, another bigger guy, could you convince Oladipo to come on like the MLE or something like that and say, let's do this?
Yeah,
probably not, because he's probably gonna go to like the Lakers or something like for that. But still, I'm down for a flyer.
There you go. That's our game. What about this guy? That's our game about Excel clients. It'll be interesting. It's something to watch out for, and it's something that we're gonna be monitoring throughout free agency, which starts in like 2 weeks. Like not even that. Well, I think I counted. There's 8 more podcasts between now and free agency.
It's
absolutely
like
wild.
2 days after Charks' thing in McKinney.
Go check out the Ultimate Mock Draft. Great stuff. I have to go produce episode 3. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom!